Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George.
My name is Tom.
And my name is Adam.
And with our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Back for another week.
Yeah.
Back for another week. And daylight savings has ended if you look at the front
page
or the back page of the Herald Sun.
If you believe the Herald Sun. Okay, well, let's start there. So this is a news and politics podcast where we talk about the news and or politics. I don't know if reporting on the Sun quantifies as either news or politics technically, but they had an interesting
far be it from us to skip an opportunity to dunk on the Herald Sun, though.
Yeah, I mean,
just like
look, generally they're pretty good at self-dunking. They've got a whole sort of like
100%
self-dunking routine sort of set up. And if they don't do it, Paul Barry from Media Watch is often happy enough to do it. But it seems like, the torch has fallen to us this week to dunk on the Herald Sun. So Adam, would you like to tell us what the Herald Sun was telling people this week about daylight savings?
Well, I would say this is Tom's scoop. I think Tom should be the one to report
hardly my scoop. I saw a photo of it elsewhere. But yes, it had it had today's date in it. So it happened. So October the 6th. They just had amongst their news items or whatever on the back of the paper, they just had a little infographic because I don't know about you guys, but daylight savings starts or ends every 6 months, depending on which time of year it is. And today it started, for the record. So last night at about 2 a.m., it suddenly became 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Because our clocks go forward an hour because farmers, I think.
Something farmers. There used to be a thing that I feel like occupied a decent amount of Australian brain space twice a year when the clocks would switch back and forward. And now it's just kind of like a thing that our phones handle for us. We just kind of like wake up and go, it's what time? And you go, it's daylight savings. That's kind of...
or more like you set your alarm for 8 a.m. and it'll ring it.
And it rings
the correct 8 a.m. because your phone will have done it. But, it's when we all struggle to remember how the clocks in our cars work. Because 6 months is exactly the right amount of time
to let it go.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And you're the guy sitting in the menu. I mean, I am as well, to be fair. Sitting in the menu going back, hang on, no, wait, it's got to be under settings. Right?
This fucking Hyundai user interface is just unusable. I just don't understand.
It won't click.
How is this not better by now?
Yeah. Anyway, but what the Herald Sun showed today in their little infograph was just reminding everybody that daylight savings ended last night.
Oh, phew.
And that our clock should have jumped back to 2 a.m. when it was 3 a.m., which is the opposite of what happened. It's just the complete opposite of what happened. I don't know. It'd be like,
summer's over, boys. We had a good time. Yeah, the jig is up.
Yeah, it's not what happened.
A small ad.
No, it's bigger. It's bigger than the other headlines on the page. It is arguably the most prominent piece of news in that section of the paper.
It's bigger than the nation's most haunted site.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's not a small blunder. It is just I think like a lot of things they talk about, factually inaccurate.
I think it's literally a case of they have two graphics on standby ready to go. And one of them is for when daylight savings starts and daylight savings ends. And it's just in a folder called daylight savings JPEG on someone's desktop. And someone saw daylight savings and thought, yep, this is the one, plonked it in, didn't really look at it. And that's how stuff gets on the Herald Sun front page, apparently.
Yeah, I guess so.
Some intern thought, daylight savings is ending. It's October. That makes perfect sense.
It's what happens when you fire all the sub-editors. Anyway, that was a fun way just to dunk on some legacy media. Let's dunk on some new media, shall we? Elon Musk. We love dunking on Elon Musk. But Elon Musk, who bought a very strongly branded social media platform and renamed it to the most pornographic-sounding Losertron X crap. He's just gonna join a rally with Donald Trump. Seems like a good idea. Great. Excellent. Mr. Arbiter of free speech and embracing all ideas, and let's not get too bogged down to specific political ideologies. This is all things he says he stands for. I think the jury is well and truly not out, but I think has ruled in the opposite. This is not.
Oh yeah, no, the jury's in on Elon Musk,
the jury is in,
and he's a neocon, neoliberal, fucking hyper-conservative fascist. Like, I don't think there's any kind of dispute about that at this point.
He wants to attend a rally.
When when convicted felon Donald Trump is running for the presidency, and you commit to spend now. Whether he actually ended up spending $45 million a month on the ad campaign is irrelevant, but committed to spending some not insignificant amount of money on funding said convicted felon neo-fascist to help him back into the White House under the cynical, reasoning that you might end up getting a tax cut out of it. Like, that makes you big old piece of shit in my book. So, and it turns out the pieces of shit will be uniting for an election rally at the site of Donald Trump's July assassination attempt. I say July assassination attempt because it was one of two. Yes.
Yes. So, I think that's sort of the hook of this, is that it's going to be happening at the same place that he was shot at, which I guess, okay. I don't know. Is that meant to be like you can't scare me? So I wasn't. It was
losing Tom there. Tom, shut up.
You're losing me.
Tom, shut up. Shh.
Tom's gone.
Tom's gone. Tom's glitched out. Tom looks like a censored hentai porn version of himself.
So it's
shut up, Tom.
Dear God. Hang on, baby's come back. Has he come back?
Are you back?
Again, Tom.
Nothing has changed on my end. What are you talking about?
We just got robot. Berk. Okay, you're back. You're all good.
Your upload died for a second there. But basically, it sounds like it's a rebuke. It's scheduled to sort of in defiance of political violence and all that kind of.
Yeah, but if I could put my finger on two figures that have most encouraged political violence over the last couple of years, like I could not find me a better duo. I'll wait.
You're not referring to the hilarious joke that Musk put out on Twitter a few weeks ago, are you?
Where he was saying, why is no one taking any pot shots at Kamala Harris? Why is no one's even tried to assassinate her, which is less of a joke and more of a dumb thing that a billionaire said. To a room full of lackeys who laughed. Yeah. Hilarious.
Tom, what were you gonna say? Try again.
No, I've totally forgotten what I was saying. It was zero indication that anything was going wrong on my side. You two were just yelling at me to shut up. And I was like, why?
Well, why weren't you shutting up?
Because I was like, what?
Your uploads just died there for a bit, but
you're all good.
So
he didn't call him a martyr.
Yeah,
Elon Musk. He referred to
the martyr lived.
A martyr.
Yeah, that's not how. Lived. I hate to be a stickler on this. That is not how martyrdom works.
It's kind of you kind of can't really be martyred if you survive.
The martyr who lived is just a guy.
The martyr who lived is just some asshole who's still representing some stuff. So I don't know.
Part of it is that there is an increasing sense of an actual political tie between Musk and Trump, to the point where there are discussions that Musk would take on a political appointment.
Something about being the chief, let's make the government so small you could drown it in a bath officer.
Well, yeah, I mean, and they were discussing in their little interview they had earlier in the year. They were discussing around, Trump was praising Musk on the way in which he was
firing people,
people,
on union busting. Yeah, it's super cool and normal and fun for a presidential candidate.
Musk has also said that he contributed $45 million to a political action committee, America PAC, so one of the PACs that supports Trump. So there's an increasing sense of tie, and this is funny because 8 years ago, they were sort of Musk had supported Trump, but he sort of distanced himself from him, sort of midway through to sort of towards the end of the presidential term, from memory. But this time around, it seems to be all guns blazing, and I think from Musk's perspective, Musk sees everything as needless bureaucracy. Like at the moment, he's fighting the FAA with SpaceX because the FAA are issuing, fines and grounding flights and other bits and pieces, which Musk sees as, just frivolous bureaucracy to, standing in the way of his grand space flight vision, multiplanetary species or something.
You know what? The other planetaries can have him, as far as I'm concerned. Fuck off to Mars. You can be first.
I guess my point being is, and it goes without saying, is that because he's a billionaire, there is an increasing sense that I guess Musk sees Trump as useful and Trump sees Musk as useful. And so therefore,
sure, but although
combined,
him having Elon's interest kind of aligns with his own, is kind of strange. It has led to some weird sort of talking points because Trump has been very much on the pro fracking, drill baby drill, type fossil fuels expansion, and that seems to be very, very antithetical to the whole electric cars Tesla thing that Elon's doing. So there's been some weird things where he's Trump in his rallies will be we got to drill, baby, drill. That's what I say. But also, I like the electric cars. Electric cars are great. The solar panels are also good, but also drilling. Also, it's just these things are all it's just a word salad of mushed together different various.
Say yes to everything.
Just say yes. Just say yes to the dress. Yep.
I feel though that also implies that I know while so many of Elon Musk's ventures around batteries and electric cars and all that sort of stuff can contribute to moving away from fossil fuels and making things a bit more renewable and environmentally friendly, arguably. That I'd still think that kind of assumes that Elon Musk himself actually cares about doing better for the environment rather than he only really cares about it because it can make him a lot of money.
Insofar as it makes him the richest man in the world, yeah.
Yeah, so I think he'd be more than happy just to I'm sure if he could find it, if he could find a way to frack electric cars out of the ground, he would. He'd still do it even if it was environmentally destructive.
Yeah, so
nuts, man.
That's So there's the two, just a nightmare blunt rotation. Elon Musk and Donald Trump hanging out.
In Pennsylvania
together. Yeah, that's great.
Pennsylvania. That's where it was, isn't it?
Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
key battleground state.
Yeah.
I hear. Yep.
You do hear that from me.
Yep.
Yep.
And also
shouted repeatedly.
Then, it's actually a world exclusive, the United States election coverage. You'll only find information about it here on Unnatural Selection. Look, it cost us a lot of money. We signed a big deal, but it was absolutely worth it.
Yeah.
I am kind of sick of hearing, though, it's a key battleground state. But that's every state.
No, there are seven. 7 out of the 50 are the key battleground states. You're looking at, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia. Those are the key sort of states that they're more or less the same states that they've been the last 2 or 3 election cycles with regard to their sort of undecidedness. Although one could argue if one is still undecided or on the fence about Trump at this stage, that could be a you and your brain problem rather than a messaging problem. But
yeah, the ship has well and truly sailed.
Yeah.
The common sense ship, that is.
Yeah.
Now, but correct me if I'm wrong. My US geography can be really terrible. From those 7 states, are any of them on the west or the east coast?
Arizona and
Arizona's
Georgia are sort of southwest.
Yeah.
Why?
Oh, because I was just thinking, everyone talks about how the big coastal cities are all the ones making all the decisions, and that they're all the ones that can control government and policy, and who forgets us in the middle kind of stuff. It's aren't all these landlocked states that seem to be the battleground ones that decide who wins the election as to who you appeal to in those states? So isn't that kind of horseshit then, saying New York decides everything?
Sorry, I was wrong. Georgia is on the southeastern coast, not the southwest.
Right. Okay.
So Georgia is coastal facing. Arizona
is
landlocked.
west. Landlocked,
I
but
guess.
it's the next state over from California.
Yeah, I guess I was sort of generalizing a little bit, but I know people are always like, oh, it's the fucking latte sipping fuckwits in New York and Los Angeles that decide what happens in the rest of the country. It's like, no, it sounds like it's what happens in fucking Pennsylvania. Like,
yeah, it's yeah, more often than not, it's the Great Lakes. What's happening in Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, like those more often than not could swing the balance of power one way or the other. Florida used to be in contention in the early 2000s, not so much anymore. That seems to be going sort of decidedly red. But yeah, I mean, it's close. I mean, she's Kamala Harris is winning in 5 of the 7 battleground states at the moment, but only by a few percentage points. It's nothing's locked in by any means at this stage. So all of these are within 3 points, sort of margin of error. It's like 3 points, so it could go either way.
We are 1 month out, right?
Yep. November 5th. 30 days. So everyone look forward to that.
Where is Pennsylvania? I'm just looking at the map.
Upper northeast.
Upper northeast.
Nice.
Pennsylvania. So you got New York on the east coast as the first state west of that. Yeah.
I'm just blind as a bat.
Okay, well,
there you go.
Speaking of New York. And staying in America, in another example of, should we call it Disney evilness? Like, this doesn't involve Disney specifically, but it seems to be evil in a similar fashion.
Disney level.
I'd say corporate megalomania is probably
corporate fuckery.
Yeah, true. Megalomania, isn't that new Adam Driver movie where he talks to the audience? Anyway.
Megalopolis.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I saw that episode of Doctor Who.
Megalodon.
Anyway, some really old school Doctor Who fans are going to be like, oh, I got that. Anyway, so in New York, the state of New York, that is, because this involved a New Jersey couple, had a really severe accident in an Uber ride, but stop me if you've heard this before, they can't sue Uber for the incident because of an agreement made in the terms of service for ordering on Uber Eats that it has to go to arbitration, not to court. Very similar to that Disney Plus scenario that we talked about a couple weeks ago, which I believe they waived in the Disney Plus scenario eventually. It's fucked.
It's insane.
Shit's
so
fucked.
the Uber driver sped through a red light. The couple in the back was seriously injured. There was multiple injuries requiring rehab and
T-bone,
hospitalization
accident.
and operations. And so they sued. And the court has, in this case here, upheld that the terms of service take precedence. Now, they tried to argue that the terms of service were agreed to, so that there was a revision that they weren't there originally. Like, it was actually a revision of the terms of service, and that revision was agreed to by the couple's one of their daughters, I believe, who was a minor and was just using their parents' phone to order something and just clicked the prompt and moved on. So therefore, that doesn't constitute an actual
but she
agreement.
verified that she was 18. So it's a binding legal agreement that I made with your daughter about food delivery. And that should take precedence when it comes to car accidents. That makes perfect sense. Adam, if a mega corporation the day that a mega corporation can't bury a ludicrous term of service in a 12-page document that no one reads in order to avoid civil and criminal liability for the things they ought to be civilly and criminally liable for, that's the day I'm no longer an American.
It is one of those things where it's like it's a very like Americans are very litigious. Like, let's remember that as well.
I mean, so are we, just in different kind of avenues.
Well, I mean, I think Americans are litigious in the sense that to the point where corporate lawyers are actively going, we need to protect ourselves from litigious clients by having these kind of conditions in their terms of service. Now, the question I've got is, if this has been, and it didn't really work in Disney's case, it's now worked in Uber's case, does this now mean that every single corporation which has a terms of service agreement, whether it be Battlefield, whether it be menu log, whether it be
Adam just starts listing all the services that he
That he
uses.
uses,
Being like,
yeah.
I'm worried about all these.
all of these things.
Armor 3.
Pornhub.
Ashley wait a minute.
If all of these services are they all watching this now are going to update all their terms of service?
Nude Africa.
Yeah. Oh man, are we gonna get?
Sure.
Just check your inbox, or every time you open an app, it's gonna be like, we've revised the terms of service. I always hate it when I see that with my bank. You know what I mean? Because like you open your banking app and it's all like, oh, we've revised the terms of service. These are the specific clauses we've changed. And I'm like, okay, yes, this is important. I should read what those changes are and see if I agree to them. But if I don't, you have literally all my money. Yeah. So it's kind of like, if I don't agree to it, I don't have access to my bank account anymore.
Hey.
That's kind of a big.
New terms of. It's a nice terms of service you have there. Be a shame if something happened to it. Hey, forget about it. Hey,
I mean, some of it.
Hey, I got a new fucking term for you here. All your money's now my fucking money.
It is interesting because some of those, and some of those terms of service will relate specifically to their app, right? And some of it will be broader terms of use of conditions around the bank account and whatever else. But who understands where that line ends and begins?
Or it's like a clause about like, the kind of information we gather to give you a credit card. I'm like, oh, okay, like, well, I'm not trying to do that, so I don't care on that front. But I really care. Do I want my money? Like,
God damn it.
You just gonna get slammed with all the updates to be like, we're already getting terms of service. But gee, like,
why is it when he's on a jag? Why is it when he's like talking in full sentences that this happens?
Am I sounding like a robot again?
Yeah. No, you're back.
Hello, it is me. I am the app updating terms of service.
You got
all your base belong to us.
I got enough. I don't need to hear it again.
We got the general gist. Shut up, Tom.
The one that I liked the most is when I got one from my credit card from my bank about my credit card. They're like, "Hey, we decided that your credit card fee is going to be like $450 now. Peace." And I was just like, "Oh, cool." It was like 300 and something bucks, but I guess like a 25% increase is justified for no reason whatsoever. Yeah, cool. Yeah.
Banks really are like Darth Vader. They're all altering the deal and pray.
But not even like a justification of like, it's hard times and we need to like pay for like plastic's gotten more expensive. It's just like, we decided you're going to give us $450 a year now. If you don't like it, go fuck yourself.
Well, what I would like to see, and I think this would be something nice to put in sort of Australian consumer law, is that if they do update terms of service, you have to give people an exit option. You can't just go accept.
I decided.
That's the only fucking button you can click on is accept.
Yeah, because it always says something like accept or like decline, and it's like, but you can't use our services anymore.
Yeah,
and you're like, but what if that service is all my money?
Yeah.
And that should be fine. But like, what I'm saying is that should then, if you click decline, there should be then not just we lock the app out for you. There should be
here's
the next
process
step
for transitioning you out of this account.
Yeah. And I think, that's something that won't happen, I imagine, for the next 50 years. Because why would we want to do? Why would corporations?
No, they're not going to build it unless the government makes them. And it's like a running joke in on the internet of like how much people do not read these terms of service, like, and it's completely meaningless to like send someone an email that they're not going to read with a 12 to 47 page agreement for a service that they barely use. Like,
and
it's not
legalese as well.
Yeah, it's not reasonable to expect that everyone's going to read it and understand it. So either write your contract in plain English, 1 pages, okay, dot points. Here's what we're doing. Here's what it means. Or like, you got to accept that there's like a certain amount of people that aren't going to actually have proper buy-in. Like, it's not legally. If someone hands you
contract law hasn't caught up with technology. That's a simple.
But the thing is,
simple problem.
It's like contract law. They keep adding, like, this arbitration clause, as you said, was only added sometime recently. So it's like lawyers are constantly trawling, finding ways that they can add additional clauses and make things like it's only getting more and more complex.
Yeah.
And our ability to deal with it as we sign up for 500 different services across our internet usage our ability to actually like stay on top of this and like have any kind of insight as to what these services are wanting and requesting and demanding of us, like our ability to stay up with that diminishes and diminishes, and we're getting more and more services. It's like, well, at a certain point, like the government needs to step in and say, you can't just like add a bunch of shit to your clauses that is unreasonable and you know that people aren't going to read in order to like get away with some shit down the line. Like, because that's what it is. It really is. Some lawyer has gone, oh, we could just say, well, you got to go to arbitration. We're going to add that to all our contracts. And then that way we're going to save 0.3 bajillion dollars a year on legal expenses. And because we'll have everything go through like, it's just someone sitting there, not thinking at all about how they can better improve the customer experience. It's how can we stooge people so we have to pay out less money over time, right?
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Makes them more money more quickly.
Decrease our liability. Now, this is obviously in the US. It's yet to be tested in Australia, but I wouldn't be surprised if Australia isn't far behind in terms of... I'm not sure if there's been a legal precedent set in Australia yet for this kind of thing.
I don't know.
But I wouldn't be surprised if we're sort of not too far behind the US. Speaking of Australia, Peter Dutton has been saying words this week because he is the opposition leader and that's his prerogative to say words. Those words are normally pretty dumb. In this case here, Peter Dutton has called for the Iranian ambassador to be expelled after a tweet praising the slain Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah. So yes, for those people who weren't aware, there is still a diplomatic linkage between Iran and Australia. We have an ambassador in Iran, and Iran has an ambassador here.
Well, like former Obama advisor Ben Rhodes once said, you don't do diplomacy with your friends. Like, this is why we have diplomatic relations with other countries, is so if there's a conflict, we can help like talk things down. You don't like, it's all well and good to be friends with your allies, but you still need to have contact with you do diplomacy with your enemies. Chiefly, right?
So, the Iranian ambassador basically said that the Hezbollah leader was a martyr and an unparalleled leader. Now, keeping in mind that Hezbollah is one of Iran's members of their axis of resistance. That's a term that I'm not sure who invented that term, but that's sort of colloquially what it's being called around the world at the moment. To which the Australian government did call the ambassador in and gave them a stern talking to.
Gravely concerned.
Concerned. They've got some concerns about
No, not gravely concerned. Sorry, that's for a massacre. This is just deeply concerned.
Just deeply concerned.
Deeply concerned.
And that sort of seems to have been the end of it. But Peter Dutton wants to expel the ambassador and has had some support in the community by the looks of it. Regarding that as well. Obviously, because...
Why is he such a fucking spud all the time? Why is he such a fucking potato? Shut up, Peter. Shut up. Like, it is obviously not ideal for someone to be praising the slain leader of a dead leader of a terrorist group. But also, like, he's the Iranian ambassador. Like, the people who sent him back home are probably going to, like, read his tweets. And if he's, like, not sufficiently enthused about defending allies of theirs, like that's probably going to look badly on him. Like, you understand how this works, right? Like, he's a guy from Iran in the high echelons of the Iranian government. Like, you guys might not agree on some stuff, like pretty publicly.
As it turns out, we there are not a heap of interests that are aligned between our two countries. But this is not the first time the ambassador has...
Wait till you hear his views on Israel.
Not
a fan.
Not the first time that he said some controversial stuff. In August, he was also called into the Department of Foreign Affairs. Although this says... This text says the Department of Foreign Affairs, which is a separate concept. In August, over a social media post where he basically said, was agitating for the violent removal of Israelis from the Holy Lands of Palestine. And then and we called him in, we gave him a dressing down, and then in response, the Iranians very shortly afterwards brought our ambassador in and said, "How dare you post about Wear It Purple Day," which is a queer supportive day in the Australian calendar. So there's a bit of tit for tat there. Anyway, I mean, it's one of those things where obviously Peter Dutton's good at looking for where he can cause
wedge issues,
outrage, wedge issues, noise, and this is one of them. Despite the fact it would be deeply impractical to expel a diplomat. Well, not impractical, but would set a pretty
counterintuitive to police people's tweets in this way. It certainly doesn't serve Australia's interest to not have contact with people with whom we disagree diplomatically, because that is the point of diplomacy. But in all fairness to Peter Dutton, he did have to bounce both of his brain cells together a couple of months ago to come up with that nuclear policy. So, he's getting bored. He needs
he's running on empty.
Yeah, he needs a couple of needs a couple of Middle Easterners to get angry at. So.
Well, and he's got more than enough crap to waffle on about with the protests that are planned, or like the vigils that are being planned to occur tomorrow. Tomorrow being the 7th of October, so a year from the initial Hamas attack in Israel. That then we've had the year of massacres ever since. But yeah, framing it like all these people are like celebrating. Celebrating this attack on Israel and all that sort of stuff, rather than, but then also in the same sentence being like, how dare these people be going out there celebrating what's happening when others are still grieving the losses that occurred in their lands, and they, it's just. I'm trying to phrase this correctly, because the mental gymnastics of that, when I've seen a lot of people like, in a bit of a gotcha kind of comment, but then others saying like, so what about January 26th then? Like, it's exactly that same concept.
What do you mean?
Like trying to wedge the issue of being like, we shouldn't be celebrating today. People are grieving, like
I see what you're saying.
Massive tragedy.
You're
like,
talking about
respect the people who are grieving.
Australia Day.
And then, people say exactly the same thing with Australia Day.
Right.
And it's like, the mental gymnastics of people like Peter Dutton and all these kind of commentators, like, they just see it as let's wedge the issue rather than actually like engaging with it cognitively.
You assume that he cares about the truth or not being a hypocrite, which he does not.
No, none of them do.
It really, like, I think it was Patricia Carvelis I saw in one of her write-ups recently, which it was just a little aside comment, but it really stuck with me, where she said something to the effect of, like, that she's been hearing from ministers that are in opposition that they're just, like, having a lot of fun because they actually don't, like, have any, like, day-to-day responsibilities.
Yeah.
Being in opposition, they can just, like, fuck around and, like, cause trouble for the other side. And, like, they're having a lot of fun doing that, and because they're not responsible for like day-to-day operations or anything, or developing policy, or like doing anything substantive. They're just getting paid a couple of $100,000 a year to sit around and throw bombs at the other side, and they're just like loving it, having lots of fun. I was like, that makes me mad. I don't know if I needed to know that information, PK, but I'm actually much madder now that I know that about the people in government. It's just like, they're not focused on like using their time in opposition to come up with like deep policy positions that might help the Australian people. They're just like having fun, having boozy lunches, like throwing grenades at Albanese. It's like, what fun.
I mean, it may come back and backfire them if they haven't got any actual policy positions when
Adam,
you get to the heat of an election.
I don't think it will. I don't think it matters. I don't think anything matters, because all it matters is, do you hate the other guy more than you hate my guy? That is all that seems to matter.
Yeah.
Speaking of hating guys, it's worth mentioning as well. We mentioned last week that the leader of Hezbollah had been killed, and Iran did react to that and launched a barrage of missiles to Israel. And Israel has commenced obviously ground operations as well in Lebanon. Now they're pretty limited at the moment around border areas, but there are plans to expand those further in. There's been, I think, about last time I read a stat, I think it was about 10,000 people have been killed inside Lebanon.
Oh, cool.
Maybe I've missed that number up. There's a glancing sort of look at a headline.
Cool and normal. Yeah.
How's that?
There's some real self-defense going on here.
How's that hug baby strategy working, Biden, to restrain the conflict from going on into expanding into a broader regional conflict? How's that going, Joe?
Yeah.
How's the hug baby strategy working out? right
And,
a month before
yes.
an election, he's getting up in front of the fucking press corps and saying, no one's been more pro-Israel than me. No one's been more of a Zionist than me. And you're like, Joe, shut the fuck up. We're trying to win Michigan. Shut the fuck up, Joe. Shut up, buddy. Can you shut the fuck up in your own political interest for a second? Shut up.
Allegedly, Israel's thinking of, the US keeps painting itself as trying to hold Israel back, but Israel's been saying it wants to
it's
target
not working.
eventually
Yeah, well, whatever they're doing, it's working great.
a large Iranian oil facility on an island. But then the US is like, no, you shouldn't do that. But the US forces actually...
Israelis are talking about using nukes. They're like, if the US government cuts us off, what other means will we have to defend ourselves with? And they're saying, the Israeli government is saying, we will attack you. We are going to attack Iranian oil sites. We're going to attack Iranian nuclear sites. And Iran's like, well, if you do that, we'll do this. We'll respond. We'll attack you back. And like, I was just like, it was just like everyone has laid their cards out on the table. Everyone's got 2 and 7 offsuit, and yet they just keep raising to the max. Everyone's just raising and outraising each other. No one's got a good hand, and it's just going to end in a fucking catastrophe. Like, and they're telling them what they're going to do, and they're like, "Yeah, so we're going to do that." Like, so we're going to make it a border conflict, right? Yeah, cool.
This is how escalation happens, and it'll continue to probably escalate, I imagine, over the next few months.
Oh, you're telling me the escalation to de-escalate plan isn't working? That's a real shocker. Yeah, we're just going to quietly escalate to de-escalate, said the Kaiser's Germany in 1914. Like, it's not the way the world works. You can't just invade. Keep escalating and invading and doing all these things on your terms and expect there to be no response. Like, this is how the ladder of escalation works.
It's funny because the government in Iran, the new Iranian president, is sort of meant to be a bit more of a moderate compared to his predecessor.
Well, I don't know what a moderate
came in
instantiation in Iran is.
He came in wanting to potentially re-engage with the US over the nuclear deal and having, be a little bit more open to dialogue. And then in the middle of all this, Israel's been, invading and bombing all their neighbors. So, it's... Anyway, look, I don't imagine Iran's going to march an army across Iraq and Syria into Israel's back door. But, where you'll see these things play out will be increased missile strikes, economic, impacts. You'll see oil prices fluctuate all over the place. You'll see incidents, piracy happening, in the Red Sea. The Houthis will be increasingly armed. Look, there's different things that'll happen as a result of this.
But again, if you're America, if you're the Democrats in office right now, just to bring it back to a pretty myopic, self-interested political lens, why do you want this happening a month before you're about to go to the polls? I really don't understand. This will...
a long-term strategic thing. It's not about a month towards that. They don't want it to be happening, but they can't back out of it. They've increased. If they did not back Israel in, keep in mind they've just pulled out of Afghanistan after they said we're going to look after you forever.
But that was one of Biden's key promises going into office, is that he was going to end the Afghanistan conflict, right? Yes, it was done extremely poorly by all accounts, but that was him fulfilling a key promise that he made going into that election cycle, right? So it's slightly different to that. Compared to we will back Israel anytime for any reason at all costs forever. That just
this is the American world order. If people don't see the threat of America, it's the threat of America doing something.
The thing is,
if America doesn't back one of their key regional allies,
but the thing is,
no matter the cost, it's dumb. I'm not saying it's dumb. I'm just saying the Americans aren't going to back out of it because it's strategically.
But Netanyahu hates you. He hates Joe Biden. He hates Kamala Harris.
Yeah, it's dumb. The whole thing's dumb.
I'm sure the timing of all of this is done to not only, provide for Israel's strategic interests, but also because Netanyahu doesn't mind sticking the boot into Democrats, right? That certainly doesn't hurt. He has expressed a clear preference for Trump and Republicans. Trump and Republican policies of a completely unrestrained Israel, obviously beneficial to Netanyahu. It's I just don't understand. for the Democrats to think of it from, like I said, from a purely myopic, like self-interested political lens at this point, I don't see what they have to lose. I really do think it's an
American hegemony across the world, which affects things like the China-Taiwan thing. It affects their relationship with Australia. It affects AUKUS.
But you don't think this, like the whole
the NATO, like it's
global
like,
world order is
NATO.
supported by them, like propping up war crimes? Like you don't think that also costs them elsewhere?
The world order, like it's not perfect. Like it is set up, assuming that all the people that they're allied with are rational actors and that America has the influence to get the smaller countries to do what they want. Case in point,
but that's not
Australia.
happening.
but when you get Israel and you get Benjamin Netanyahu who just goes, I'm going to do what the fuck I want. The whole system starts to fucking look really.
It's literally
dodgy,
like,
but like,
I remember
there's
hearing
such a large pyramid built on this. They kind of just have to roll with it now. Like they've got no other choice.
I don't believe that. I think they think that. I think Biden specifically believes that. I actually don't think that's true. Like it is hurting not just their political chances. It is hurting America's perceived like place on the world stage that they are continuously doing anything and everything to back Israel, despite them having ignored all references to better judgment in the things that they've been doing.
I think there are ways in which the US can wield soft power. They can do things like, we're still going to support you, but we just might give you half the amount of missiles for your Iron Dome.
Mate, any softer and I'm not going to be able to hear it whatsoever. Like, this is some pretty soft power that
there
they're
are things
executing
that they can do to leverage
40,000 dead in Gaza. Like, it's pretty soft, almost like borderline silent power that they're executing.
Yeah. But they're unwilling to do any of that soft power by the sounds of it. But anyway, the whole region's kicking off.
That's one way of putting it.
It has kicked off now. I mean, Israel's fighting a war on two fronts.
Can we agree? Can we at least agree that Joe Biden's strategy of hugging Bibi, that's what they call the hug Bibi strategy.
Oh, it's failed. Failed miserably.
Absolutely failed miserably.
Yeah, absolutely failed.
Okay, good.
Absolutely
failed. Yeah. If you, just coddling him into being like, now, come on, reel it in. All right, you killed 10,000 more people. Like, but seriously.
Haven't you had enough? Like, someone's getting cranky. Lay down. It's time for sleep. Sun's getting real low, big guy.
Yeah, I know you want to start a fight with another country, but let's just chill. Yeah, no, it's not working. And that's what I was saying last week of like entertaining him at the UN and just letting him have his supervillain speech to the United Nations. It's like, you can't be going any softer on someone going absolutely mad in the region. Like
they've got no other choice. Strategically, from a whole global like pyramid, they have to keep publicly backing Israel.
Like, I don't see it. I don't see why. It doesn't make sense to me. Like, it seems like the costs outweigh the benefits at this point of backing Israel. Like, I really do think they could pull them aside and say to them, we will not give you any more arms if this expands into a wider conflict. Like, yes, you're our strategic allies, but like, it's like that story. But you got to remind them, hey, we're the fucking superpower here. Like, what sort of abusive relationship is this where you get to take billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars of military assistance from us and we don't get a say as to how it's deployed? Like, that is absolutely not how this is supposed to work.
Yeah.
There is a story where Bill Clinton came away from a meeting with Bibi Netanyahu during his presidency, and he said something reportedly said something to the effect of like, remind me who the superpower is again. Like, this has been the dynamic between Israel and the United States for decades now.
Yeah.
So
they're taking the piss.
They're taking the piss.
Yeah. It's hilarious. It's hilarious and it's scary.
The people who vote for Democrats, like the people who care about Israel, care about it from a leftist perspective, from a perspective of stopping the war, and the Republicans who care about America's support for Israel aren't going to vote for Kamala Harris anyway, right? Because they're right-wing Orthodox Trump voters anyway. So it's like, I really don't understand the political at least for Kamala, even though she's like technically part of the administration, to distance herself and say like, look, that's Joe's policy. When I get in, it's going to be a different. Like, I don't even understand why she's not willing to defend herself for her electoral advantage, saying, oh, that's Joe Biden's policy. My policy is going to be slightly different. Like, I just don't
I
understand.
I
It just
think-
seems
I
so
think there's
against their own
there's a large
self-interest.
Jewish contingency in the US. Probably, I think it's larger than Australia, from proportionally speaking. So,
But if you think Trump is an existential threat, if you really think that he's the threat that you make him out to be, then I'm sorry, like you should and would and should be doing everything in your power to stop him, even if that means begrudgingly against your will doing the right thing. It just seems like they're just hell bent on fucking this up for themselves. The Democrats, I really don't understand it.
it's a political headache, and they're not really doing anything about it, which is interesting. It's like the best course of action they've decided is to do nothing.
But and you got a war breaking out, essentially a wider conflict breaking out a month before people have started voting. Early voting has started, and you have the people looking at the current administration going, "Well, that never happened under Trump's watch." What is it about this current administration? They're breaking out into a war right as we're voting. That's the last thing you would ever want as the current administration. You would think it's the last thing you would ever want going into a new voting cycle, especially when the talking points have been that Trump, is an isolationist and doesn't start conflicts abroad and all that sort of stuff. You'd think you'd want to defend your bona fides on this issue. It just doesn't make any sense to me, man. Michigan.
Yeah,
you will
it's
lose
the system, man.
If you fuck with the Arab vote, you will lose Michigan. Michigan is one of the cannot lose states, right? There are a lot of Arabs in Michigan, and a lot of them have the conflict in Gaza as one of their main sticking points. You will lose Dearborn. Like you will lose, and we're talking about tens of thousands of votes. A few thousand votes either way could lose you an entire state and all of the electoral votes. It just seems so short-sighted. Like.
Yeah. Well, and I think equally applies to here as well, like in terms of like our upcoming election next year. With the the Albanese government and their grave concerns and finger wagging, but not much else, kind of.
A lot of talky, not much doey.
Yeah, not much doey, and we have to follow in the wake of the US, right? Like, who's the superpower here? Like, we're several further down the rung.
Probably why Peter Dutton feels emboldened to like have a go at Lebanese people and also try and get a Western Sydney wave going at the same time. Like, which makes no sense to me. But
see what sticks.
Well, I mean, if the thing is with Peter Dutton, he knows that if he says stuff like that, it helps him in areas like back where we used to live, Tom, like Balaclava, Elstonwick in Victoria, which is a Labor seat, with a large green tinge. I
mean, my area in Elstonwick sort of area was Liberal for yonks and then became teal, but also a huge Jewish community. So
they can start to pump. Yeah, by saying stuff like this, he can wedge a few hundred votes, a few thousand votes in particular seats. Given it's a contemporary, this conflict is a contemporary issue that wasn't really there last election. Speaking of Australia, and it's interesting. We were discussing several weeks ago now around the NAC and what does the NAC actually do. The corruption watchdog has confirmed it has conducted a raid at Parliament House on Thursday in relation to a ongoing investigation. Now, no real sort of details as to what they're investigating, but the only thing they've said is that it did not relate to a current or former politician, which basically means
boo.
Yeah, it sounds like would be investigating some sort of staffer.
I don't give a shit about staffers. I want to see them kicking down Pauline's door and dragging her out by.
Well, who do you think's telling Pauline what to do? It's the internal machinations of these parties. The unelected officials are the ones that are driving a lot of it. So, still helps. Now, apparently, the NAC has got 29 investigations going at the moment, and 6 matters before the court. I did reread what the NAC can actually do, and they can't charge people. They can only refer things.
They can write a very strongly worded letter.
But they can do a lot of stuff. They have a lot of powers in terms of getting evidence. So they can, issue summons. They can raid, places of residence or workplaces. They can request documents. They can subpoena things. They've got all that, the whole suite of powers when it comes to investigations. and they can write reports.
How
Very
is that
strongly
different?
worded report.
How is that different to an inquiry? Like, isn't that just what an inquiry is?
Well, I mean, I think what they're saying is that they will, if they see that there's in there, if you go to their website, there's a whole FAQ now, which wasn't there 6 months ago after the whole robo-debt thing, which basically talks about, if there is an alignment or a crossover between another government agency, they can refer things on to that particular government agency.
But isn't that what an inquiry does? They provide recommendations to the government, to whomever, and then they take those recommendations and do something.
I guess an inquiry has to be sort of,
or a commission,
royal commission.
Same thing.
An inquiry has to be set up by the people in Parliament House. So the point being is an inquiry has to be started by the people that are potentially corrupt. So it's not going to be in their self-interest, whereas the NAC will
It's just free floating.
Yeah, and will have the powers to.
It's just
make
a
non-biased
royal commission with
fewer steps.
With just a free floating royal commission, basically.
Well, not even a royal commission, but an investigatory body that can leverage things. Like a royal commission has to. There are certain processes and things that it does and ways that it's meant to act. Whereas I guess the NAC is more of just a watchdog, quite literally. And that if there are criminal charges or criminal investigations, it would then refer them potential criminal charges. It would refer them onto the police.
Yeah,
a watchdog in the sense that they watch and then don't. Bite.
Yeah.
Not a bite dog.
Yeah,
not a guard dog. No. A watchdog.
But it will be interesting to see. I mean, they've got 29 investigations going on, and I don't know. A lot of these aren't very public, so it'll be interesting to sort of see once some of these start to.
Oh yeah, loads, super busy. I know you guys are pissed off about the whole robo-debt thing, but we're super busy. We've got heaps going on. Trust me, bro. So
yeah, I look forward to finding out what all these investigations are 50 years from now when the tell-all books come out and they're unsealed.
Indeed. Speaking of tell-all books, not really tell-all at all, but the ability of freedom of speech, the ongoing discussion around limiting teenagers' access to social media is, in fact, ongoing. And Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has written to state and territory leaders this week to suggest that the ban should be placed up to the age of 16. So 16 is the age that we're currently talking about. South Australia has previously proposed 14. New South Wales is saying 16. Apparently, New South Wales and South Australia are going to hold like a little summit to discuss the issue. But that's currently where that's at. So what do you guys
compromise at 15?
Yeah, maybe.
Like 15? 15, great. Right in the middle. No, oh fuck. I saw this headline because the other part, Adam, I think you're missing the key point here as well, was the other aspect of the reveal was that Albanese was, just shooting the shit, maybe being like, hey, and also I know there's been concerns about teenagers' access to information and there's been importance of senses of community and things like that among younger people. It's not all doom and gloom sometimes on social media. So how about current, like anyone who's already a teenager and has social media can keep it. Just no more new people under 16 can have social media. Best of both worlds. To which I think I had the thought, and then George, you said it in all caps in our chat links when you sent the article through. I think literally we got the same news alert because it was within like 15 seconds. Then why the fuck are we doing it?
Then what is the point of doing this, Anthony? Then if we're going to have all of the people who are currently on social media still on social media, what is the point? Why have we been having this discussion? What is the point of it then?
He makes me so angry.
The other aspect as well.
He almost did something based. He almost did something courageous and was like, oh, no, this is sounding too dope and popular. I have to water it down. I need to proactively water it down before it even gets to the fucking Senate.
He almost did something bold.
Yeah.
In an area where it's like, you want to actually make some serious change here. Like, jury's still out as to whether or not it's worth, like, curbing and banning young people off social media. It's, like, such a more complicated discussion than, like, I think it's really sort of
But you brought it up, Anthony. This is your idea.
You brought it up. And to be like, oh, but we kind of won't, though. It's the same with the gambling ad thing that happened, right? Where they're like, let's do a big, bold, sweeping change that might actually do something. But it's got to be fucking bold and absolute. Oh, no, but we don't want to.
I don't want to. That's
it's
that seems difficult. That seems hard.
Yeah, like we're gonna have some more wind farms, but let's also allow like the Great Barrier Reef to be destroyed. Let's do a little bit of both.
Yeah,
we're the Labour government.
¿Por qué no les dos? The government.
That's right. If it doesn't go your way, you can always blame the Greens for being objectionist, which is, I mean, they are being objectionist. But,
I mean, they might be being objectionist, but I feel they're being objectionist in the way that's like, you have to fucking do the bold thing.
Yeah.
Or don't. Like it's the same with the housing policy stuff. People are like, what are the Greens doing? Like, why are you holding up the housing policy? It's like, because the housing policy is just like waving its soft dick around, not doing anything, instead of actually going hard.
Yeah, the housing policy is let's put a bunch of money in the stock market and like hope for the best.
The other thing that was floated was, and this is even worse probably, the possibility of using parental permissions instead of a flat restriction.
Even worse. Even dumber.
Even worse.
Much dumber.
Yeah, much dumber. One in just the, like, I don't know, just involving the it's never caused problems before. But in all the arguments of, like, the good reasons for younger people to be on social media for, say, like, I don't know, given how oppressive, like, education is around stuff like being queer or, like, sexual health and things like that, being like, Mom, can I learn whether or not I'm a lesbian on social media?
Can I learn about
that's not gonna happen.
Can I learn about the queer stuff, Mum? Can I see that pop up? And like, by the way, the parental permissions, we already have that. That's already a thing that we have and that parents can do. We don't need legislation for that. That doesn't add anything.
And parents don't use it.
No.
Well, some probably do. But
and kids get around it.
Yeah. And this is the thing, is that I don't know, like, let's say Australia legislates it. We put it in, the Governor General signs it, it's in law, great. What happens then? So
how do you enforce it?
Does Meta then turn around and go, like...
Well, I guess Facebook can't be in Australia anymore. Bye.
Yeah, like
maybe.
what?
Good.
I don't know, like... like in terms of the technology, like what? How do you
enforce this?
I had a comment.
Pornographic websites have tried for the longest time. Like I say tried, they probably haven't tried too hard because
half-assed.
They still want people using it. But like the whole thing of you sure you're 18?
Come on, buddy.
Yes. Click. Like like what the fuck else can they do?
It really I had a comment the other day. There was a post on, I think it was the ABC on one of their various social media sites, and they said something it was a poll, and they said, do you think that kids under 16 are able to handle social media? And my response, which got a lot of attention, was something to the effect of like, I'm not sure at this stage that adults should have access to social media. Like, we have not proven that we are very good with this. Like, no one in our society is very good at dealing with this. Like, this is a terrible poison on our society. We need to get rid of it. Like, it is, it's one thing to say you're going to do something big and bold around all of this, and it's just like such an utter, like, predictable disappointment for the Labor Party to then go, oh, that thing that actually might have done some good? Yeah, we're just going to back off of that. We're just not going to do that. It really feels like they're... So, is
that democracy to some extent?
A comedian...
But by consulting with various parties and...
You do that behind closed doors, Adam. You don't announce the shit and then go, oh, that fucking sucked. Everyone hates it. Let's back off that, hey. Because it makes you look like you have no fucking principles. Do a bit of background research. Talk to a fucking couple of people and figure out what your policy is going to be, like a big boy, and then announce it. Like,
run the numbers through the Parliamentary Budget Office and then deny that you ever requested
and then deny that you had any part in it, like a big boy.
And then, like, I hate bringing this up because it's such the gotcha or, like, the classic example, but gun control. Like, that was so, like... When gun control was being put through in Australia following Port Arthur and all that sort of stuff, like, it was so unfupopular amongst, like, a lot of people. Like, it was probably really unpopular through
sometimes
through
you
the
need to lead. Sometimes you need to do the right thing.
Yeah, but, like, I always think of who was it, Bob Borbidge, being the one to say, yeah, I knew it would cost me my seat,
and I did it
I would
anyway.
not get re-elected, but I did it anyway because it was the right thing to do. Like, sure, you could ask around, like, even in behind closed doors, and get all the big, like, opposition from everybody, and rather than softening it to be like, okay, you can't have your guns every second Tuesday. No, you have to, like, do the bold thing and say you can't have them ever.
100%. It's something that leftists seem to be no good at is, Democrats and Labor. I say leftists.
To be fair, Howard had
leftists. Just
a massive majority.
Just let me get the point out, though.
Oh, well, that too.
Is that it seems like these center-left centrist parties that we have seem to be like they're all about like reading the room, making sure they get the best like fucking sample size and poll the public on exactly where they're at, rather than trying to like change the narrative to bring the public to where they are, which the Liberal Party and the Republican Party seem to be much, much better at. It's like, oh, you think we're just going to have an argument on like reasonable, equal terms? No, we're going to drag you kicking and screaming over to the right. Like the way the Republicans talk about their border policy. The way the Democrats talk about their border policy really buys into the Republican framing of like, there are all these terrible people, the teeming unwashed masses across the border that are begging to get in, and, like illegal aliens and all this sort of stuff. Like the Republicans, even though the Democrats have like tried to be centrists and take the midpoint between human rights and not human rights that the Republicans are proposing, they've lost on the framing grounds because now the debate around the border is framed on Republican terms, because the Republicans don't seem to care if something's unpopular. They don't care if abolishing Roe versus Wade is unpopular. They're going to campaign for 50 fucking years to drag everyone to their perspective in order to get their policy passed. And what you can argue whether that's good or not. Obviously, I think it's very bad, but like, the leftist, the Labor Party, the Democrats don't do that. They look at reading and seeing the people where they are now and moving to the right in order to match them, rather than saying, here are our principled leftist policies and we're going to convince you and bring you over to us. And that's why the Overton window keeps sliding ever rightward, and has done for the last 30, 40 years, is because no one ever challenges from like a hard left perspective. Anytime someone talks about Obamacare or any kind of like, which is, by the way, a Heritage Foundation plan that was first enacted by Mitt Romney in Michigan, okay, to add privatized insurance for more people, right? Hardly a leftist socialist Medicare for all type plan. When Obama was promoting that, they were calling it socialism, calling him a communist, because he was advocating anything that was more left than far right, suck it and see, you don't get healthcare unless you pay for it, Republican policy. Like, they're much better at that kind of narrative building.
They can, it's not even narrative building. I mean, there is an element of narrative building, but the other aspect as well is that if you want to look at, they get to set the social parameters within which they get to set the parameters of the argument.
The parameters of the debate.
And the reason for that is because they are closer to the starting point than progressives are. So progressives, the whole point of a progressive agenda is that it's talking about change. It's much harder to convince people of change than it is to convince people of staying the course.
I disagree with that though. I disagree with the assertion that they're closer to where the populace is, because if you ask the American populace, do you want, reasonable gun control legislation? Do you want free abortion access under the Roe v. Wade type limitations? Do you want free healthcare? The American populace, when surveyed across party lines on both sides, are overwhelmingly in favor of those policy positions. It's only once it starts filtering through the left-right debate and divide where people start calling each other socialists because they want, kids to not starve at school, that it ends up becoming a problem. But if you ask people about their beliefs without tying it to party or policy positions, that what we would describe as a leftist perspective is actually much more popular with the populace than you would think, or than we're led to believe, certainly. People want free healthcare. They just don't like Democrats giving them free healthcare.
People want things, but then nothing's ever viewed in isolation either. So, it's hard to sort of say, yeah, this is a good concept, but like,
it's also about ideological capture.
All you need, and to use but bring it back to Australia, to use the voice referendum as an example, all you need is a couple of sticking points to poke holes or to create
But that's a
doubt,
perfect
create a point
example.
of fear.
But that's actually
that
a great
is-
example for my side, which is to say when people were surveyed without knowing any of the detail, the majority of people were in favor of the reform. It was only once the right wing started building a narrative that it was something dark and sinister and scary that the thing, the narrative shifted in the other direction. When you polled at the start of the process, it was like 60-70% overwhelming support in favor of the proposal. That's why they barreled ahead with it, because they thought they could do it without the other party's support anyway. That's my point, is that the right is much better at building and steering the narrative than the left is.
They are.
Against the public's own self-interest.
Because it's easier. Again, the starting point is I don't want, change is scary. And all I need to do is make people afraid of that change. And
I would say that's the methodology. The methodology is take what you believe the position should be, the narrative should be, and then use the method of change is scary in order to get people to be afraid of the change that, in actuality, when surveyed, they really want. People
they're not afraid of it until they're manipulated into being
Anyone
afraid.
who's ever had a child thinks that universal free childcare is a good idea. Most people in Australia, in America, believe that free childcare is subsidized childcare is a good idea. Why don't we have it? I don't know, because the politicians on the right are really good at crafting, making people scared of spending money, making people scared of change. Like it's about their ability to craft a narrative. It's not about what people actually think about these policy positions. People believe in universal childcare. People believe in reasonable restrictions on guns. People believe in legalizing weed. People believe, like, if you poll people on single issues about what they believe about these topics, they are overwhelmingly reflect what would be reflected in a leftist policy platform.
Yeah. There is, I can't believe I'm about to bring this up, but there is a fantastic musical I saw recently that illustrates this exact point. Called Reefer Madness, which is like, well, it's adapted from like a 30s anti-marijuana campaign, I think. Like, and it was like super ridiculous of like,
this is your brain on drugs.
People, the people smoking dope are turning into communists and all this. Like, it was all ridiculous. So it's like this very silly, campy musical of like taking that to the extremes, and these people getting hooked on dope turn to cannibalism and stuff, and it's all crazy and weird. But the big ethos of the show and kind of like the point that it ends on, like Alan Cumming is in it kind of as the narrator of like the ad, being like, see the normal American boy and what happens to him when he gets on the reefer, all that sort of stuff. But the point he gets to at the end is like, give them something to fear, and the control
comes,
like, and then it comes. Like, if you make them afraid of a particular thing, like it's like people have a need to fear something, give that to them, and then you can control them, because it all turns into book burning by the end of it. And he's like, and all I had to do was make them afraid of marijuana. Yeah, it was very clever. Anyway.
But the thing is like that holds true. I don't know why the left is so reticent to engage with that kind of like persuasive dark arts in that regard, whereas the right, the conservatives are more than happy to lie and steal and cheat and beg, borrow and steal and do whatever they need to do. Like when the left does it, it works. Like the right wing was so annoyed about the Mediscare campaign, right? As you say, give the people something to fear, and you'll get the control. When Labor was going after the Liberal Party in the 2019 cycle, the Mediscare campaign, or 2016 cycle, whenever that was.
Yeah, it might have been earlier. I thought
basically what they said is...
It was one of the Bill Shorten ones.
Yeah.
What they were saying is that the Liberals are going to take away your Medicare, and people go, oh, fuck, I really like my Medicare, I'm going to vote away. So it was 2016 election campaign into its final
16.
days.
So yeah.
So basically, Labor ran a scare campaign saying the Liberals are going to take your Medicare, don't vote for the Liberals. And like the right was incandescent with rage about it because it worked. Like it was a campaign that really peeled away a good amount of support from them. It's like, well, this is what you guys do all the time. Like you can hardly be mad at it when they're taking the same aggressive kind of narrative persuasion techniques. Like whether you think it's like good or not to be like, slightly misleading the Australian public is like besides the point.
You're playing their game.
But you're playing their game on their terms.
The Greens do it too now with their stalling tactics, right? It's like, like people say like, oh, it's frustrating. And they've kind of like, they're digging down into the being awful. It's like, well, they're playing the same game now. We're all playing the same rules.
Yeah. We're playing by the same rules that the coalition's been playing for since the Howard years. And then all of a sudden they're mad about it when it gets used against them. It's like, well, that's like who corrupted the discourse? Like who did this to us?
It's much easier to do all this when you're not in government, right? Like if you're to your earlier point about the coalition just like sitting back and jerking themselves off. I mean they can do that, and they can. All they need to do is say lodge a few talking points to create doubt, fear. They don't actually have to convince anyone of anything. The government does have to convince them, and they have to fight that tactics. And there's not really a like if you're trying to get a piece of legislation up and to get the swing and get enough support in the community to then affect the votes in caucus, like
I want to know why can't we have fear mongering for good stuff? Like we got fear mongering for terrible stuff. Why can't we occasionally have fear mongering for socialized medicine?
We kind of do. Like the nuclear energy stuff that Dutton was talking about did get massively shut down. There were about all Labor needed was about 4 or 5 talking points about as to why the nuclear deal was a terrible idea, and I think that's pretty much sunk. Even though the Liberals are continuing with it as a policy platform, but it's like the Liberals, that's the only policy
sinking a bad idea that gets put to you. Like it's one thing. Like why are there no? It really just seems like the Labor Party is a comedian who's gotten on stage, who's been elected, who's gotten on stage, doesn't have any material, is just looking at the newspaper headlines going, what next? What else? What else? What else? All right. So we got, what else? Just throwing, throwing darts at the board and trying to find something to see what sticks. It's like, well, what's your proactive legislative agenda? What are you going to bring people? What are you going to win them over to your side about? It's not just about taking the pulse and being led by the populace. It's also about leadership is about leading the populace in a way that you think that they need to go. John Howard, for all of his flaws, and there are many of them, which we've discussed at length, was a leader in that moment after Port Arthur. He said, I think this is the right thing to do. The public is not with me on this, but it is the right thing to do.
But he also had a majority in both the lower house and the upper house.
Yeah, okay,
but the Labor Party don't. They've got to negotiate with the other side, which changes the dynamic on everything. Like you're comparing apples to oranges. I know we can say this on principle. I'm just saying in reality, it doesn't work like that.
Like well, not Labor anymore. Like the situation has changed over decades, but it's kind of like we should maybe be striving to get back to something.
They're about to lose.
Could Labor be more principled? Yes.
They're about to lose their majority in the lower house as well if things keep going the way they're going. So clearly whatever you're doing is not fucking working. Like maybe try. Let's try having a spine and see what happens. Let's maybe try and do something.
They need to change
what happens.
Their public relations tactics, because at the moment, it does. Every time they propose something and then they back away from it, it makes them look
it makes them look even worse.
Weak as fuck.
I would rather hear nothing from you than hear a policy position that's halfway decent, which you then back down from.
Yeah, you shouldn't just be publicly testing the waters on all your policy. I know sometimes that has to happen, but you can't just be let's put it out there. Oh, they hate it. Oh yeah, jokes.
There's a way to float a balloon and sort of get an impression of what the public thinks about a policy without it, without you releasing it. I mean, fully to the public.
In theory, if all you need are for the upper house, if all you need are 3 or 4 senators, surely you can do that behind closed doors.
Surely. Get David Pocock in the room. Get Jackie Lambie in. You need a handful of pricks in the Senate to be able to make this work. Surely you can go, okay, so and so's got this is their pet issue. We can get them on board. Isn't this the job of government? Is to do a bit of negotiating and get your shit through. I just don't understand.
Well,
but they seem to announce the policy and then go and have discussions with Pocock and whoever else, and then it's
and that combined with social media being flooded with every fuckwit us his opinion on half-baked policy, and then they change their minds.
It just makes me wonder, like the Grattan Institute and these, the Australia Institute and all these think tanks that you've got sitting around generating policy to be shovel ready for when you take government. It's like, well, what are they doing? Like, they're generating reports. Are you guys not reading them? Like, have you blocked them? Like, what's happening? Yeah. Like, there are ideas that these think tanks have policies that they've put together that are ready for action. Like, what have you been doing? What were you doing in opposition for all those years? Like, weren't you looking at, what were you doing?
They were just lobbing grenades and having boozy lunches while jerking each other off, clearly, like the coalition's currently doing now.
It's like the Democrats. It's like they don't want to win. That's what it seems like to me.
Yeah. Well, speaking of people wanting stuff, but maybe us not being sure whether they want it, but also I guess they did want it because people turned up. Okay, I haven't got a good segue here, but a weird thing happened in Sydney recently, where there was we in Australia, we love a pop-up shop. We love a pop-up event, like a thing just appearing. You see a little pop-up and you're like, oh, what is it? Like, I want to see what, it won't be here forever, so I guess I better check it out.
And line up around the block.
Yeah, line up around the block for it. And this particular pop-up was extra interesting because it involved cookies. And now, I don't know about you guys, but I fucking love me some cookies. Unfortunately, my fingers were not on the cookie pulse for this one. I wasn't aware that this pop-up was happening. But yeah, so a pop-up event happened in Sydney for a particular brand of US cookies called Crumbl. Crumbl without the E on the end, because that's cool, I guess. Have you guys heard of Crumbl cookies before? I've not.
I've not, but apparently they were promoted by social media star Kylie Jenner. So
right,
this
okay,
is why they've become a sensation.
Yeah, apparently a big deal in the States. I don't know. They look kind of huge and delicious. Great, awesome. So I think when there was news going round that a pop-up shop for Crumbl cookies, previously never available in Australia before, were going to be in Sydney, people were excited to check out these funky cookies. But plot twist, the pop-up event had nothing to do with the brand itself. And instead, what some people had done, I don't know sort of how large the operation was. It's kind of a bit sketchy on the details here. There's just a singular spokesperson for the pop-up event who went by Toby and refused to give anything else to the ABC when they contacted them, is the only kind of mouthpiece we've had for this. So I don't know if is it just Toby or was there a whole team behind this? Dunno. But what they did...
It's a cookie Illuminati.
Yes.
That's who it is.
But what they did... Okay, no, let me step back a bit, because people who did actually go to this pop-up went there and bought some cookies, which were apparently $17.50 Australian each.
Inflation.
And we're
I don't want to hear shit about Cozzy Libs and cost of living pressures when y'all are spending $18 on a fucking flown-in cookie from the United States. Shut the fuck up.
That's the next part.
I can't. I'm trying to get my electricity bills reduced. Looking at different providers, trying to save half a kilowatt hour, and people are spending $18 on a goddamn cookie. Shut the fuck up.
So people tried these cookies and were like, "Oh, they taste alright. Seem a bit. They don't seem fresh
Stale.
or anything, or like." What the hell? Like, these are kind of a bit shit. What's going on here? Is this a scam? And I think so people are calling it the Sydney Crumbl cookie scam, but I don't know if scams. Yeah, it's sort of interesting as to whether or not scams are right, because it's gonna get legally really interesting. I think this situation. But what really happened was that some people unaffiliated with the company Crumbl flew to America,
literally
walked into a Crumbl shop, bought 800 cookies, put them in a bag, and flew back to Australia, paid all the necessary import taxes, do you have anything to declare? Yes, I have 800 cookies up my ass, in my bag. I have 800 cookies. They're like, okay, so that's food, that's whatever, that'll be these taxes. They paid all of that, brought it in, and then they put up a pop-up shop and sold them. And so they came back into the country, I believe, on a Tuesday, and on the Sunday of that same week was when they had the pop-up. So we're talking 5 days. Yeah. Like a week, I guess, from when I don't know,
6-7 days from when the cookies are baked.
You're supposed to be baking the cookies on probably the day you're selling them. So yeah, they would have bought them. They arrived back on. Tuesday Australia time, and kept them refrigerated. They said, like, you know, per like instructions of the brand of like how you can store them or whatever. They said
maybe that's where the costs came in. Was they had to pay for refrigeration?
That's the thing. The whole thing of like $18 per cookie makes accounting sense to me, given you made the expenditure of plane tickets over to the States.
Yeah, you
buying them at
several $1,000s worth of flights and accommodation that you need to offset.
Yeah, any accountant will tell you that's what you should be charging that much in order to make any sense of profit, because you spent so much per cookie. You know what, fucking moron.
You know what it sounds like to me? It sounds like a couple of guys getting stoned at uni, just be like, it'd be a good fucking business idea, bro. Bro, I'm an entrepreneur, okay? I'm a businessman, okay? What if I just like fly to the US and just like buy a bunch of these cookies and sell them myself? Like Kylie Jenner loves them. Like people would froth it. Like absolutely, bro. Like let's fucking go. Let's do it now. Let's book the flights.
Yeah, this is an untapped market.
Bro, I mean, like, the margins on these fucking cookies are insane, bro.
Yeah.
I would love to see a short film or even just a long film about this whole saga. And because 800 cookies, like
I would like to see
single, like feature, you would have had to have gone
feature length
driving around, LA or something, trying to find these cookies and be like, okay, well, we've bought this entire store out. Wait, our flight leaves at 7 p.m. We've still got to get another 300 cookies. Let's drive down to Midtown to buy another 20 cookies. Wait, there's a store that's still open. They've still got 400 cookies. We have to get there by 5. They're just Grand Theft Auto through the.
I had not considered that point in the that they bought 800 cookies and came back. How many cookies does one store bake for the day? Is that more than a single one of their operations?
Yes.
Did they have to go around? Holy shit. So
I'm imagining a feature length biopic, premium Argo style movie directed by Ben Affleck, describing the procedure of how this went down. If they can make films about the rise of Nike Air Jordans or Pac-Man or whatever the fuck they're making films about now, they can make a film about this.
Sure. I don't know if Ben Affleck could possibly make a movie about a chain that is not Dunkin' Donuts, though.
That's fair.
I think
he's contractually obliged.
Yeah, everything in his Bostonian blood, I think, just would not allow it. Anyway, so where this gets interesting is because people saw this advertising of being the Crumbl cookies are coming to Sydney, and everyone took that to be like, wow, these haven't been available before, we'll go to the thing. But the marketing allegedly, and I say allegedly because I haven't personally seen it, because the account that was posting it all has deleted all the TikToks that have anything to do with it, which looks great, guys. Good one, Toby and whoever else.
Definitely feels above board.
Yeah, totally above board. But it said all of the they said, I'll quote Toby here, saying customers who were genuinely interested and watched the full video or read the comments and bio of the event, we clearly stated not endorsed by Crumbl and not official Crumbl. So that I don't know whether that'll stand up, and that Crumbl themselves have been like, yeah, we did not organize a pop-up event in Sydney, Australia. We're not with them. Oh shit, people are talking about how shit our cookies are, allegedly, not understanding that people just bought them in America and took them back.
Baked fresh in America.
Gonna be very, very interesting. So apparently the cookies sell for about $5, like $4.99. I don't know if that's before or after taxes in whatever state that you're buying it in, because America's interesting like that. But about $7.25 Australian in a direct conversion if you're over in Australia. So $10 extra per cookie, $10.25 by the sounds of it. Because and also Adam, this would be great for your movie to add a bit of drama.
I love a bit of drama.
They bought, according to Toby, they had approximately 840 cookies that they had purchased over there to come back, but 240 of them were damaged on the journey back.
Breakage.
Can you imagine that stress, being you're in the third act of the film and they're back in Australia, they're setting up the thing, and
what are we gonna do?
Nearly a third of our cookies are damaged. What are we gonna do?
Up the price, Jimmy! Up the price! Yeah. Will they pay for it? You know they will. Yeah. Smash cut. People lined up around the block. And to be fair, they were lined up round the fucking block to buy these cookies.
They're just cookies.
Look, my partner loves a good social media baking event.
Mhm.
She loves pop-ups. She's into that, and I love eating the stuff that she buys.
Mhm.
So I'm going to call that out for what it is. I participate in this social
You're an
phenomenon.
enabler.
But I also want to say I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. We should not be buying things. Like, why are we lining up around blocks for baked goods? I don't understand why we do that. It is so weird.
Once you're a parent, once you're a parent, you don't have the patience to line up for anything. I need things brought to my house, and they need to be done instantaneously. Okay, I'm not lining up anywhere for anything.
I don't understand why we do that as a culture. But
I mean,
Toby has said. So I say, Toby has said they will not be doing this again.
No,
why?
Probably
why
not,
though?
Because I imagine they are sweating bullets as to whether or not they're going to get like just the absolute arse sued out of them. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. I mean, yeah, Adam, I'm with you there. It's a bit ridiculous and silly, but then on the other side of it, I went to this place here in Sydney where their whole thing is like Japanese fusion lamington.
Okay.
And I would line up around the block for those.
Come on, shut up.
It was pretty good. I had a matcha lamington and it was great.
That's dumb.
Anyway,
You're dumb. This is dumb. On that note,
I'm going to segue. Can I segue this back to the start? That maybe all the people who bought the cookies should have read the terms and conditions.
Yeah, that's true. If any of them die in a cookie-related accident, they have to settle it by arbitration, even in death.
On that note, we have been, we are, and we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com, and follow us on all the bullshit social medias that have, do, or ever will exist, 18 plus only, at our handle, at Unnatural Show. There's nothing adult on there. I just don't like kids being on social media. Make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram at George Tsipos.
You can follow me on Twitter at Tom D. Heath.
And you can follow me down to the latest baking event,
cookie-related
TikTok,
social media event.
Social media event where I'll be standing outside in the freezing Melbourne cold to get a morsel of cookie for $17.50 that I'll probably eat in 4.3 seconds.
Bargain.
And then have severe abdominal pain later on.
Thanks for listening, guys. Love your faces. We'll see you next week.